starting off first. The show started off with, there weren't even any introductions, guys. We were our tag team champions and the best friends were in the ring starting off the show. SPD, what do you think about that tag match?
So I want to touch on that too. I love the build and entrances. So I was a little shocked of the in-ring start of the show. I know obviously this card was absolutely stacked to the max. And so I get it to kind of cut timing just a little bit. But I do like the entrances, and that kind of just gets you pumped up when you just get in and get that ring announcement to going. It kind of, I don't know if it makes the match not less or as exciting to me a little bit. I don't know. When you get the entrances, you get that anticipation and that suspense to me. And when you don't have that, I'm not a big fan of the way that starts the show. I think you should start the show, especially with a live audience, with an awesome entrance, someone who can really get the crowd going. And this match was a good match, but I think they could have started the card with a better match to really get the card going. I personally think the Cody OC match should have been the start of it. We'll get into that later. But overall, I know we were talking a little bit back and forth about this, but I liked the Best Friends' new ring gear, and I definitely think they are an act that is more over with fans. And, when I hear them get crowd reactions, and I like that best friends chant, and I would love to be chanting that in the crowd. I think they are more of a draw. But when they're, it's not the crowd, they don't do too much for me. Trent is great in the ring. I think he's an awesome performer. And believe it or not, Chucky T surprised me a little bit. He's starting to grow on me a little bit, piece by piece. After that street fight match, and after that where he took that crazy chair bump, and a few spots here in this match, he was growing on me a little bit. So best friends in front of a crowd, I can definitely see them getting over very well, and for them to have 17 tag wins in 2020 is very impressive. So they've been the backbone of this company almost in the tag division that is very heavily stacked. And so I did enjoy the match. What about you?
Well, you hit on a lot of stuff there. First things first, I hear you. I think that the Best Friends being a backbone of the tag division and being incredibly over, just listening to the fans, being engaged in social media, I was surprised at how vocal the fan base was for trying to get behind the Best Friends and OC. There was a big push for all three of those guys to come away from gold on social media from what I saw. And that means that FTR is obviously doing their job as heels. There's not a lot of people who are rooting for them to win, right? But that's one thing. I will say that I wasn't surprised by the actual finish of the match as far as the FTR holding and retaining the titles. I anticipated that. The actual finish of the match is going to get a lot of talk online. The referee kind of dodging or ducking. I don't know what that was all about. Unfortunately, kind of sloppy execution to the finish to a match that I thought was one of the better matches on the overall card. It was
I agree.
kind of disappointing the way that match ended. But that said, the ending of the match itself bled into, I think a talking point that is going to be feeding next week's show. Miro and Kip Sabian going to be fighting against the Best Friends. Whether it's next week or in the coming weeks, it certainly was. There was no denying that the Best Friends are going to want some revenge after that beatdown. But before we get into that too much more, SPD, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was obviously you mentioned Chuck Taylor growing on you a little bit. I felt like this match really did a nice job of playing to the strengths of the Best Friends. Trent being the one who was isolated, being in the ring quite a bit. Trent is the workhorse of that team. There's no denying that guy is one of the better overall workers in AEW. Not a lot of flaws in that guy's game. And they did a nice job of kind of hiding Chuck Taylor's deficiencies. I personally was geeked about this match for that reason. I thought Chuck Taylor would blend really well with FTR. A little bit slower pace. Chuck, not to dog on the guy, but you can tell his cardio is not quite to the same level as his partner.
Right.
And so I thought maybe a little slower pace, a little bit more brawling, a little bit more hard hitting would fit Chuck Taylor's style. In my notes, I kind of just said it might have been wishful thinking on my part. He just is still not. He's not doing it for me, man. And it's a shame that I have to say that, considering they are one of the more over acts on the card. I think that the discrepancy between Trent and Chuck Taylor is becoming more and more glaring the more they're on television, unfortunately.
Right.
But that said, Chuck Taylor did lead to that next feud, right? Him steering the video game console that Kip Sabian was playing on. Wow, was that that was something. And I have to say, as an FTR fanboy, you guys got to give some credit to the champs for, instead of taking a cheap count-out victory, he did drag Taylor's carcass to the ring, did not take the count out, wanted to finish the match in style. So I was impressed by that. But obviously the match itself is over with. We know that the best friends aren't going to be fighting for a tag title shot. Maybe, obviously with knowing that the ending was a little crooked, they have a stake in trying to get another title. It doesn't really hurt them too much, this loss. Right. But they're going to be most focused on getting revenge against Miro. And Kip Sabian. This was by far the most intense we've seen out of Miro. I know that you and I have talked a lot about. Really, unfortunately, he came in as such a hot free agent, and the buzz around Miro has really fallen off quite a bit. What's your take on this? Before we get into the elite or delete of the match itself, FTR versus Best Friends, I think that the buzz on social media from being plugged into the fans is going to be Miro and Kip Sabian. What are your thoughts on that? And then we'll summarize the match real quick.
Yeah, the end of that FTR match to me was very slow and sloppy. There was a lot of down quietness, and I was just kind of confused. I'm like, what is going on? Do they know where they're going with this? And the whole arcade thing I thought was pretty cool to kind of just further the storyline, because that was some of my disappointments, I guess, in previous episodes where there was, semi builds and then it just kind of ended, which there's a big one at the end of this discussion we'll have later tonight. But Miro, I tweeted about it on at AEW Dynamite DL, that this is what I want to see out of him. Even though if heel babyface, the fans are going to chant for him, which is, historically the way it's kind of been with him.
Right.
But this is the way he should have debuted, coming out angry as hell, whooping everyone's ass, just doing anything possible, just squashing guys and just looking like a force to be reckoned with. And he definitely did that today. It was kind of like a assurance of how much of a badass he is. And because he was kind of fizzling off, it was like this awesome debut, great promo. And then the one match, and then it just was like, okay, where do you go from there? He's playing video games in the crowd. Yeah. And so whatever, I get it. There's a place for that, and which came into play today. And then the whole game over thing. So that's my take on the Miro thing. I loved it. I loved the way he acted, and I loved how he stood tall and strong.
So do you think, overall, do you think that the Miro segment and the way that the post-match shenanigans, do you think that salvaged your opinion of the match? Because I know, based off of what I hear from you, the way that the show started, no introductions, sloppy ending of the match itself, as far as the ref confusion. To me, and even as an FTR fanboy, this match was a delete for me. What about you?
I will agree with you that we have a delete on it. It's going to having this, the anniversary show, with a absolute pay-per-view stacked style card. The expectations were high, and I was expecting a lot. There was some good points of the match, but that whole sloppy ending, And even though the Miro standing strong almost can kind of make you forget that, it didn't. And so, we're both giving it to the delete. I think it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but it is what it is.